Hi, I'm Kristen. You may have noticed the world's becoming more ridiculous with each passing day. Come with me as we explore these wild and confounding times, from culture to media to politics to world affairs and more. I'll explain it all. Welcome to episode 3 of Kristen Explains It All. What it's like to be a conservative in California. Today, I needed some help explaining things, so I have a special guest. This is at Real Brandon Donk from Twitter. Some of you guys will know him. If you don't, you should. He's laughing at me already. So first of all, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Kristen.
So what we wanted to discuss is something that I guess if you could put like all of our conversations together, especially about politics, it'll kind of explain how we got to where we were. There are very different ways to get there, but we got to the same ending. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, I agree completely.
Okay, so having said that, I think that I'm a conservative because I grew up in a conservative state and I've seen that it actually works. You can become successful. I mean, it takes hard work, but I like the fact that hard work is, it's well paid but you have to do the work. I think that you became conservative because you lived in a liberal state and you saw how the liberal policies do not work. Would that be fair to say?
You're dead on. There are two ways you become conservative. One is you see how it works and works well. States like Tennessee with a long-standing conservative viewpoint and ideology, they get out of people's way. They allow people to succeed or fail on their hard work and their stick-to-itiveness. And then you have a state like California where liberal ideals punish providers and reward the lazy and the inactive. And you get someone like me who sees that and says, wow, I don't want to be like that. I'm going to be the antithesis. So I became a conservative after watching liberal ideas fail.
Well, and just to be fair, there's some lazy people in Tennessee too. let's not get crazy here. No, but as a whole, we're a very conservative state, and I believe that there's a ton of different factors that come in sometimes, and that messes people up. I mean, I know people that were really successful once, and then they get hooked on drugs and they lose it all. Things happen. You know what I mean. But I truly feel that the conservative ideology is still very strong there. I like to tell the story that I was technically raised by a conservative and a blue-collar Democrat. My stepfather was a FDR Democrat, blue-collar, just because there was a time where Democrats really tried to do good, I think. I don't know what happened, but it's just, that's hard to say. Like, I'm tripping over my words even over that, because it's so uncomfortable for me to ever give them praise. I don't know that we're there anymore. What are your thoughts on that?
There was definitely a time that being a Democrat or being a Republican had a lot less meaning in life. It meant you had certain ideals and you leaned a certain direction, but it didn't preclude you from being friends with someone of the opposite party, in the case of your mom and your stepdad being married and having a very successful marriage. But that was in a time when the government had far less to do with your daily life. We live in a world now where almost everything you do is in one way or another regulated by the government. The government, for some of us, like me and my business in construction, it's darn near a daily interaction with a government agency of one type or another. We've come to a world where the government tells you what food is safe to eat, what cars are safe to drive, how to drive those cars. There are warning labels on everything. We are treated like children. The government tells us how to live, and it's really made it to a point where I really can't be friends with Democrats and liberals, because when they go into that voting booth and vote for Democrat and liberal politicians and those ideals, I truly believe they are voting against my success.
Well, and I think that's where the parties have become so far apart. You do become offended by it because people are starting to take your livelihood. And anytime anybody starts to mess with someone's way to make a living, then you're talking about a totally different situation there. That's why I think that the parties have just become so far apart that there's no common ground anymore. I mean, there used to be a time where I think all of this had happened. And the biggest thing I personally believe is the 24-hour news cycle has done a great disservice to us. I remember I used to watch Greta Van Susteren show on Fox. And she was always, I think she came on after Hannity and Combs, and even after Hannity. She would always discuss like true crime cases, right? I really enjoyed watching her show. I mean, this was during like the Natalie Holloway case. That was, a big case, the Kaylee Anthony and all that. Then she went completely political. And this was during the Obama years. And I didn't want to watch it anymore. When you see a show like that, you can't turn on cable news anymore without it being all politics. That is done on purpose now. I mean, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, the mainstream media is about pushing fear. It's about keeping people divided. They definitely have a bias. If you don't see it, you've got your head in the sand, or you're just incapable, or you're lying. They don't do us any favors. I'm a big believer that the mainstream media is the enemy of the people. They help foster this distrust we have with each other. And again, from my earlier comments, if you're voting in a way that's going to damage me, I don't trust you. But the media helps keep it prevalent, helps keep it right up front and in our faces all the time, so you can't ignore it.
Well, and I kind of want to circle back. Oh gosh, did I just turn into the...
All right, Jen Psaki.
God damn it. So what I think is really interesting here is that you and we came from two different worlds, completely two different worlds. We both were raised by business owners, small business owners. I believe that is kind of how we have so much common ground, because hard work's always been a part of that. Are we able to go back to that life where we could actually get along with Democrats? I hate to say it, but I don't know. I don't see it. I mean, what are your thoughts about it?
I don't want to sound pessimistic all the time about this, but I don't know how else. I don't know how else to sound and not be honest. I think that our country is broken. I think our citizenry is broken. I think we've been pushed by politicians and the media to hate each other. They fan the flames of hatred. Everything's become about race and ideology. The race thing drives me nuts. I don't think race matters at all. I think ideology is important, but you have to keep your head screwed on straight. Can we get back to the way it was, like when your mom and your stepdad got married with different ideologies? Honestly, I don't think so. Not with how ramped up everything is. I don't think we'd be allowed to. I just really think that the powers that be need us at each other's throats, and we can't pretend we're not.
I unfortunately have to agree with that. I've had the left scream at me that I was a racist for the past 5 years, I guess now. I don't think that's forgivable. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. I try to forgive people, but am I ever going to trust you again? No, I don't know. I don't know how we do that. But we need to stop focusing on that, actually. What I think we need to focus on is how do we change the hearts and minds, I guess, of these people. And you actually have a very, good idea. We've discussed this a lot, and I think we both always come to the same solution.
Well, yeah, as we have talked about several times, I think that politics in America has become really focused on the White House and national politics. We forget that we're a nation of 50 laboratories of democracy. I think that if we're going to push this country back to the right, and I make no bones about the fact that I think we should be a right-leaning country, we're going to have to do it starting at the bottom and working our way up. We need to start retaking state legislatures or districts that have gone blue. We need to get control of the House of Representatives again. The president matters, but the president isn't the end-all be-all. If we can control Congress, and if we can control state houses and state governors, we have a ton of power. And because America has become, in a lot of ways, balkanized, we're not necessarily going to win national elections. We have one national election every 4 years. Obviously, we elect the president. I don't know that we're going to do that well at electing conservative. We might elect a Republican, but truly conservative presidents, I don't know that we're going to see one in a long time. But we can elect conservatives at the state level and at the level of the House of Representatives and even the Senate. And it goes even as far as, conservatives need to get on the school boards. And we need to start at the bottom. I don't necessarily want to say grassroots, but just at the bottom. Because in the end, all politics is local. And we need to get focused on that. Let the liberals be infatuated with who's president. Let's get our power down at the bottom, at the foundation, and work up from there.
I think that's the most excellent of points. I don't see a way forward other than that for us, because I think, like I said, we've lost the media. They have turned us into, there's certain people that if you told them that you voted for Trump, they would try to kill you right now. I mean, let's be honest, because they would think you're the worst person ever. They're going to think you're a racist, a sexist, all these things. And it's so unfair. We have to just let that go. And that's difficult. I understand that. But I think where they have somewhat miscalculated is I believe that they think that everyone believes like this. I'm starting to see a bit of a shift, especially like comedians and stuff. They're coming out against cancel culture. Even with this shoe business, with this guy, you're seeing other rappers be like, okay, I'm out. There's a little bit of hope. Now, are we going to vote the same? Probably not. But at least we're starting to see a little common sense. And I think that that's the best we can ask for at this point.
I agree that the left has gone too far. And you and I have talked about this a lot, that they have allowed the Democrats and the left as an ideology have allowed the most extreme members of their party and their groups to take over. And that is going to alienate the more mainstream Democrats. I don't want to say moderates, but the ones that are more in the middle of the Democrat Party are going to be alienated by the far, far left taking charge. And that's what we've seen. The far left has taken over the Democrat Party. Now, they claimed that about us during Trump, that the far right had taken over the Tea Party and other far right groups. What they don't understand is people like you and I, we are not far right. We are solid conservatives, but there's plenty of people to the right of us that we look at and say, no, you are taking it too far. The Democrats haven't done that yet. They haven't looked at the folks with Satan shoes or the folks that are supporting drag queens reading to toddlers and said, no, this is too far. You've gone off the deep end. And I think that the backlash now that we're getting with a lot of folks against cancel culture is the beginning of the left saying, or the Democrats saying, we've gone too far left and we need to pump the brakes. Does that mean they're going to come right? No, it doesn't. But I think that they're starting to see the flaws in some of their own allies.
Go out there, run for office, run for your local state or school boards. Let's do city council. That's where we have to start. And that's what I want people to do. And I say this, and I would be glad to help anyone. Just reach out to me and I will do anything I can to help. I know you would as well. Let's just have that thought. I think that this gives a discussion about how we both grew up very differently, but we come to the same thought process. We don't always agree on everything, let's be honest, but I think we agree enough to where it worked. So having said that, follow at Real Brandon Donk on Twitter. And your DMs are open. Reach out, talk to him about anything. You have any questions, he would for sure be willing to answer them. If you haven't subscribed yet to the YouTube channel, there's the button down below. You can also find me on Twitter. My DMs are open. So we will see you guys soon.